Hello and welcome to another AIC video. So for the last few months, you've probably seen this laptop with its RGB vents glowing in the background of some of my videos. This is bought with my own money, Lenovo Legion 7. It has a Core i7 10th gen processor with 6 cores and 12 threads. It has 32 gigs of RAM, two 1TB SSDs in RAID 0. It has a 1920 by 1080 240 hertz refresh screen with G-Sync with 500 nits of peak brightness. It also has an RTX 2070 Super with 8 gigs of memory. It is a beast of a laptop, and I have been using it here in my home office. Its performance in a lot of ways actually beats my dedicated editing desktop that I have inside the main part of the house, especially when it comes to graphics and editing video. I bought this laptop a few months ago off of Lenovo's outlet page. Now, if you are not familiar with the outlet page, basically Lenovo has a store separate from their main web store where they sell new, old stock, refurbished, and just overstock items. And it's a great place to find a deal if you know what you're looking for. For example, I just recently picked up this ThinkPad X280 off of eBay. Now it is refurbished for about $320. A lesser spec one on the outlet page is going for about $800. So it's not always a great deal, but it can be if you know what you're looking for and do some shopping around. And that is where I've picked up this system. I've picked up a few systems through the outlet over the years. So it can be a great option, and they do come with, regardless if they're refurbished or if they're new, they still come with a 1-year manufacturer's warranty. And so that's where I found this, and I found it for, in my opinion, a pretty good deal. I paid about $1,500 for it, and to put that into perspective, a desktop version of the 2070 Super goes for about $1,300, just the graphics card right now. Even the graphics card I have in my desktop that I paid about $225, $250 for almost 2 years ago, it now sells for about $700 to $800 used. So this system, as far as what it provides performance wise, is definitely a pretty smoking deal in my eyes. Now, why did I shop for a new fairly powerful laptop when I have my dedicated desktop? Well, it really came down to two reasons. One, my desktop graphics card was really just a stepping stone. I'd had a lower tier card and I was doing a lot of video editing and wanted to step up to something with a little bit more performance. And then I was hoping to step up again later. I have several computers that serve as home theater PCs and gaming for my wife and my children. So I was planning on passing that card down. But then everything happened, and graphics cards just haven't ever been reasonable to afford. So I wanted something, as I now do a lot more 4K video editing, to be able to edit those videos a lot faster. And this machine definitely edits video in 4K significantly faster than my desktop. Another reason for having a laptop over a desktop is simply for space. I'm here in my office and I just don't have a ton of room out here for a dedicated desktop, dedicated monitor, and then also I want to be able to move around in here a little bit. I have a couple other chairs that I can sit in with a folding table, so I'm not stuck in just one position as I work throughout the day. Now, getting into some specifics of this laptop, one thing you'll notice, it is not small. Here, let me close it and just compare it. I have a couple other laptops here. Size-wise, to a Lenovo ThinkPad X280, I mentioned earlier, you can see just how much bigger it is. And then to what I consider a fairly large laptop, a Lenovo T450. And you can see just how much bigger this thing is. It's also quite a bit thicker as well compared to the T450. But with size comes more expandability. This has a ton of ports on it. Here on the left hand side we have two different USB ports. One is a Thunderbolt 3. One, it has DisplayPort 1.4. You cannot charge this off of the USB Type-Cs though. We'll go into that in just a second. On the other side you have another USB Type-A 3.2 Gen 2. On the back you have HDMI, two more USB A ports, Gigabit Ethernet, and then your charging port. So tons of expandability. The one thing it doesn't have is an SD card reader, and that's something I wish it did. But with enough expandability on here, it's something I definitely add. I have a USB Type-C dongle, Thunderbolt expansion that I have to plug in monitors, things like that, and it has an SD card reader on there, which I use. Now, it might be hard with all the bright lights and everything in here to see this screen quite as clearly as I normally do, but this screen is probably one of my favorite features about this laptop. Whether it be for normal productivity, for gaming, it is probably one of the best screens I've had on a laptop, period. I've had some with higher resolutions, and they definitely have, you know, a higher quality as far as that pixel density, but it is something different to have such a high refresh and such a bright screen. It has HDR support, and you can tell it definitely has very deep blacks and very bright whites, and it looks really good. I'll have to do some demonstrations of some videos, video games. We'll see how that turns out. Another thing on this laptop that is really good are the speakers. Now, it is a laptop. You're limited on physical size of the speakers you have, but the audio processing and the overall speaker quality on this is excellent. Even at max volume, it's very clear. It doesn't get muffled or mumbly or crackly or anything. It's very clear at high volumes. It has plenty of bass response, significantly better than what I would expect out of a laptop. So very happy with the sound quality. It's good enough that I don't immediately go and grab external speakers or headphones. I don't feel like I have to, like when I'm watching a movie or playing video games, that I have to wear headphones like I would with a lot of the other laptops. Now we'll talk about kind of my least favorite thing about this laptop, and this is probably really nitpicky of me, but it matters to me, so I'm going to mention it. This is a 15.6 inch screen, and it seems like on every 15.6 inch screen monitor, what do? They include a numpad right here. And numpads are great. In the past I used to think that they were a necessity on a laptop, that I wouldn't buy a laptop without one. But then I started using the 14-inch laptops and smaller, and what that did is it got me a laptop that had the keyboard and trackpad centered to the computer, which if you ever do any long sessions of typing or just productivity work on the keyboard and the touchpad, makes a huge difference. And having this numpad on here, a feature I definitely do use, but not as much as the rest of the keyboard, it makes everything shifted over to the left. And that means when you're sitting at the computer, you're always a bit off from the screen. Either the screen is off from you, or you're off from the screen, or I end up usually just breaking out a separate mouse and keyboard so that I can be centered to the screen. I know that's, again, super nitpicky, but it is definitely something I notice when I spend excessive amounts of time on it. Now, I probably would get used to it, except for I do use so many other computers directly with their keyboard and touchpad that every time I come back to using this without a separate keyboard and mouse, I notice it. And one of the most annoying things about it is specifically how I interact with the touchpad, where I like to rest my wrist. I end up always right-clicking on things instead of left-clicking, and that just gets annoying when you're always just bringing up a menu when you try to open something. Again, I'm sure if this was my only system that I used regularly, that I would get over that pretty quickly, but it is an annoyance for me personally. Now, as far as that keyboard goes, it's not bad. It's definitely, Lenovo has always made pretty good keyboards, even on their consumer grade. When I review those teeny tiny 11.6 inch computers, they almost always have one of the best keyboards available on such an inexpensive machine. They make a good keyboard. And this is no different. But again, this probably comes into me being a little bit more spoiled, or at least my personal use case is I wish it was a ThinkPad keyboard. ThinkPad keyboards are just better. Now, I'm sure the reason behind this is there's a lot more resistance and a lot more tactile feel to a ThinkPad keyboard. So when you're sitting there and you're typing for a long time, you tend to have fewer errors, fewer mistakes, a little bit less fatigue as you press on those keys. Where with the Legion, it probably is more geared towards gaming, fast action, light key presses. Again, it's something I probably would get used to over time. And again, it's not bad. It's just a personal preference I have. So again, it's good. It's a lot better than a lot of other laptops I've used, Dell, over the years. So again, not a bad keyboard in any stretch. It's just, I wish it wasn't ThinkPad. The other thing is the touchpad. The touchpad, again, it's nothing to write home about. It functions, it works, it's not distracting to me other than being off center. Inputs are great, the feel of it is fine. On such a big computer, I do wish it was a little bit physically bigger, but other than that, nothing to write home about, but also not really anything to complain about. Now, as you can see, I have the RGB going right now. This is the default mode where every time you reboot the computer, if you do not have iQ installed, it is iQ compatible. This is the mode that it goes to, regardless of the different options you change it to. In fact, my favorite, if I go ahead and hit the function key, is actually this one where it lights up the keys in different colors. But if I ever reboot the computer, it comes back to that just spinning rainbow. I wish it would save your choice between reboots on the system, and it just doesn't. Again, if you can use the iQ feature, and it does work, and it gives you a few more options. I don't necessarily like running additional software in the background if I don't have to, especially when I'm using it for gaming or other performance. I know iQ doesn't take a ton of resources, but I have enough things running in the background that I decide to uninstall it. So yeah, it is what it is. The one thing I don't know if you noticed when I hit the function key is one of my favorite features about the backlight and the RGB. It's the function key. You can see it lights up all of the different functions that you have. So if you're hunting for an option and it's dark and you may not have the keyboard lights on, every time you hit the function button, regardless, it still lights up those function keys, letting you easily see what your options are. Now, one of those function keys that lights up when you hit the function key is the Q. And what that does, it allows you to quickly switch between three power modes. We have the light on the power button is blue, it's on cool and quiet. White is normal, red is the performance mode. Now, blue, as the name suggests, cool and quiet, it reduces clock speeds, forces more things to use the integrated GPU versus the dedicated GPU, keeps the fan speeds low, keeps temperatures down, and extends your battery life. Normal mode puts everything back at stock settings, but still tries to keep the fan noise down and the overall noise of the system more quiet. Now in performance mode, it allows for GPU overclocking, it allows for CPU overclocking, and it ramps those fans up on the speed up on those fans like there's no fucks given. It gets pretty loud, not extremely loud. It definitely is still not as loud as other laptops I've had, but it definitely is significantly louder than it is at idle in either of the two modes. And if I were to play in that mode, it's definitely enough that I would want to wear headphones. But for normal everyday use, I usually keep it in the cool and quiet mode. Keeps temperatures down, keeps overall power usage down. I mean, if I'm just typing out Word documents or if I'm just responding to emails, things like that, there's no reason for it to be in the high performance mode. In fact, I rarely use the normal mode for most things. Either I keep it cool and quiet, or if I'm going to be doing something pretty heavy duty like editing video or playing video games, I just go ahead and throw it into the performance mode. Now, performance mode is only available when it is plugged in. The other two modes are available on battery or on power supply. Now, one thing with this laptop is on any of the modes, battery life is not great. It has a pretty substantial battery. It has an 80 watt hour battery. It should be plenty enough to last for quite a while in most other systems, but with the hardware that this system is packing, it just doesn't last nearly as long. I usually get between 2.5 to 3 hours on the cool and quiet mode. I'm sure if I were to go in and tweak settings more specifically and not run my screen at peak brightness, I definitely could get more time out of it. But that would require more effort on my end to do so. And I don't really use this as a off power system. It's a desktop replacement for me, and so I don't really worry about that too much. But yeah, it does not have stellar battery life. The other thing is this is its power brick. It's a 230 watt unit, and this power brick alone weighs more than some laptops I've reviewed recently. This is a beast to carry around with you. You definitely want to be able to have a backpack or something that can carry this with this laptop wherever you go, because you definitely are going to need the power supply when you're out and about. So in short, this desktop replacement system, because I do consider this to be replacing a mid-tier gaming desktop, is just that. It's a desktop replacement. It's perfect for the person who has a small home office that was a shed. Maybe they are in a dorm or a studio apartment, or just don't have a lot of space to dedicate to a computer, or their system just needs to be mobile. Maybe they travel for work and need or want a gaming machine when they're out and about. It's an excellent option for that. It's a very attractive machine. It doesn't look overly gaming. You can turn off the RGB and it looks fairly professional in its looks and overall styling. It doesn't have anything too crazy on it until you turn on the RGB. It's not super heavy, super bulky compared to some other gaming laptops that are on the market, while still packing a powerful punch performance-wise and being able to keep itself relatively cool. I mean, when I wanted a machine out here, this is the one that I picked. I had lots of options kind of in this price range, and it really came down to that combination of price to performance, and this really hit all the marks, and I really like it, and I definitely recommend it as an option if you're looking out for a system this holiday season. Anyways, hope you enjoyed my video. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day.